You know, John, it's 101 days until Nebraska's season begins.
So far away.
Well, wait a minute. I thought what about all you liars talking about 100 days, 99 days?
I said last week was
so
100.
The count's going in the wrong direction.
No, last week it was 100 days to college football. John, Nebraska famously doesn't play week 0 this year.
Oh, that's right. There's stupid sports that have a thing called week 0, even though there is no such thing.
What, Nick?
They call it week 0 because it doesn't count, right?
You guys don't have to be angry about everything. You do know that, right? You can just take the world as it is.
Yeah, take the world as it is. And
yes,
as
Josh,
it is right now, it's baseball.
Come as you are, Nick.
Yes, that's a great point, Nick. It is. It's baseball season. But you have done some research.
Yes, I have.
Ayahuasca Peterson.
So, John, you remember last year we had one of our great friends of the Grum, Riley, and it was December of 2023, maybe January of 2024, as we were trying to figure out, don't you yawn, you jerk.
I know.
As we were trying to figure out, hey, Dylan Raiola, numbers, what kind of world could he be living in if you wanted to just compare him to previous top 3 quarterbacks? And so Riley, he went back all the way to 2013, and he found the top 3 quarterbacks for every single class according to 24/7. And sent us their freshman numbers. So guys on this list, for example, Christian Hackenberg, Deshaun Watson, Kyle Allen, Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen, Hunter Johnson, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Bo Nix, and others. And you'll notice the names that I just gave you, some of them had really good college careers. Some of them had forgettable college careers, and others were maybe down the middle. I would say that, Christian Hackenberg, a guy who started all 12 games as a freshman, it was fine, right? It was fine.
Fine.
And honestly, fine, as we're going to talk about with Dylan Raiola. Like, I think that there might be some comps there with him. Guys like Deshaun Watson, really good, and then huge breakthroughs as sophomores. Other players, like a KJ Costello, played in 0 games. A Hunter Johnson got backup snaps in 7 games for Clemson. He was the guy before Trevor Lawrence, for those of you who remember him. JT Daniels at USC started a lot of games, and then he got hurt his sophomore year. So anyway, I was trying to figure out, what did it mean for their next year? Because that's what we're looking at now, right? We're looking at year 2, Dylan Raiola. Are there comps for these players over the years, and what did that mean for them in their next year? I know that you have the data too, John, and I put this together over the weekend. Was there something that jumped out when you were first scrolling through it as maybe a player, or something that you learned about year 2? Because I think the biggest takeaway for me was that starting and playing in a lot of games in year 1 did not seem to mean as much for year 2 as I kind of hoped it would. I was hoping that there would be like, hey, the guy started 12 or 13 games. Look at what happened for him in year 2. That really wasn't the case. I mean, most of those guys, barring injuries, they were full-time starters again, in year 2. So like, he is going to be one of those. But I didn't think that it was like easy maybe to take away like a jump, whether it's in touchdown to interception ratio or total yardage. The guys who got better are the obvious guys who got better. The Deshaun Watsons, the Caleb Williams. But it's like Tua. It's kind of hard to compare him to those guys because those guys are now all,
Well, I mean, NFL. I think that's your takeaway. The guys who are really good made the jump. The guys who ended up not being all that in a ball of wax didn't take the jump.
Yeah.
And so really what this year might tell you is, while we try to project, well, what would a good year be for Dylan? The real projection is whatever Dylan does this year could be the thing that tells us how he's going to be, period.
Correct.
And you never like to say, hey, after year 2, this is what you are. But I mean, that's, the last 10, 11 years that this research goes back, that's what it kind of tells you is those quarterbacks who ended up being really good took the jump in year 2. Those quarterbacks who didn't ended up not living up to the hype. We did a similar exercise. Nick, if you want to take down the graphic there. Jed did some research for his podcast, and we shared this several weeks ago. And this was the top 15 quarterback recruits. So this is going deeper than just the top 3. But the projection and man, this was
the formatting.
The format worked on the last time I did it. Apparently, when I changed it over, it
got wonky.
Got wonky a little bit. But basically, there were 14 freshmen who played 500 or more snaps as sophomores.
Okay.
So of those 14, based on the projections, their average wins were 8. Their average completion percentage was, 71%. The yards. It basically projected a season where Dylan throws for 3,000 yards, has 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Okay.
And then the question is, is that kind of a season good enough? What kind of a season would that
What it mean
translate?
For the team?
Yeah.
So for those who don't remember, Dylan Raiola last year, 275 completions in 410 attempts, 2,819 yards, which was a completion percentage of 67.1. But so all of that actually sounds pretty solid. 13 touchdowns, 11 picks. Surprisingly, John, when I was looking at the data for the other guys, this number stood out to me too. His long was only 59 yards, which is, it's just not a long pass. Like a lot of guys have ones that are approaching 80 yards, if not more. Was sacked 27 times, so essentially twice a game. And we know his rushing stats were abysmal. His rushing stats of negative 65 yards last year, because of course sacks are turned into negative yards, are among the worst of any of the quarterbacks that were in the top 13, or the top 3 rather, since 2013. And you said it a few minutes ago. The thing about year 2, I think, is it does tell the story of if you have promise, you are going to show it in year 2, because of all of the guys that we look at, and again, it's 3 a year. For the recent players, I guess we still have a little bit more data. We're going to learn about Arch Manning this year, because this will be year 3, and his year 1 and year 2 stats don't have anything special about them, but that's because he was the backup quarterback behind Quinn Ewers. And speaking of Ewers, even he did jump. He played in 1 game for Ohio State in 2021. He then played in 10 games for Texas in 2022. He had over 2,000 yards. He completed about 60% of his passes. He had a 15-6 touchdown interception ratio. I think that kind of tells the story of Quinn Ewers, honestly, John. Good, solid, but not anything great. But look at Caleb Williams, his year 2, 4,500 yards, 42 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Bryce Young, 4,800 yards, 47 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Spencer Rattler maybe is the most interesting one in here, and this was the COVID year. But for a guy that his career ended up being fairly forgettable, his year 2 was pretty solid, over 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, almost 68% completion percentage. He was the reason why I was buying into Oklahoma in 2021, and then he actually got benched for Caleb Williams, a part of that season. So I think that you hit it. If he is going to be a special quarterback, like people thought he could have been coming in, he will show it. And if he doesn't show it, that's not it doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. It's just, John, do you remember much about Shea Patterson? Do you remember anything about, I'm trying to find again, Christian Hackenberg was the guy that I kept looking at his stats. Year 1, 2,955 yards. Year 2, 2,977. 58% completion percentage year 1, 55% year 2. 20-10 touchdown interception ratio, 12-15 to year 2. I don't know, man. I looked at those numbers over and over and over, and I wondered, is this who he is destined to be, or not? Or not?
On this same day that you do this, David Hale at ESPN tiered the quarterback situations across college football, and in tier 6, under the subheadline "Second Time's the Charm," is Nebraska, along with Kansas State, NC State, Texas A&M, and UCLA. Now, these are quarterback situations, so he's looking at the top 2 quarterbacks, but obviously in Nebraska's case, you're looking at number 1, and that's Dylan Raiola. And one of the things that Hale mentioned, and a lot of people are going to look back on this, is how Raiola's season flipped after October, where the QBR dropped, the yards per attempt dropped. It was only 4 touchdowns, 11 turnovers, 9 yards per completion. It wasn't all that spectacular. And, of course, that's when Nebraska started playing better teams.
Yes.
So how much can Raiola, and that also includes 3 games with Dana Holgerson, who is expected to come in here and work wonders for the offense. So I think one thing we're going to have to caution ourselves against, because again, Nebraska is starting with a pretty light schedule this year, is not to get too crazy.
Yeah.
If things, start to pop, but let's see what happens. Well, I mean, we can start looking as soon as Michigan in game 4, because, Michigan's going to throw out some good players. I don't know if they're not going to be the same Michigan team they were 2 years ago, but they're going to be very respectable, and they're going to be the first true test. And then after that, we see where it goes. But the end of last season sticks in a lot of people's minds when it comes to Dylan, and let's see if he can overcome that and put together as strong a second half as he puts together in the first half.
John, remember how we felt at halftime of the Illinois game with some of the throws that he made? And you and I were in the building. That's the first time I'd gotten to see him in person. And it was like, whoa, special player. I know that he's not perfect. He has some deficiencies, needs to work on his footwork, et cetera, et cetera. But I remember watching that game thinking this guy is special. And that is essentially the beginning of the end. He gets banged up in that game. And after that, it is downhill. The Rutgers game, horrifically ugly. Purdue, not great in the first half, especially. It was tied at 0. And then the losing streak begins, and he misses on some throws. He misses on some big throws in the Ohio State game. And again, not everything was perfect around him, but he was not the confident player that I thought he was in the first half of the season. That went away. Can he be that person for a whole season? And what's it going to mean to have Dana Holgerson as his offensive coordinator?